Hey guys, welcome back to the UpSet podcast. Tonight we are talking about Christian people in secular places. Coming up next. Hey, once again, welcome back to the UpSet podcast. We're so happy that you tuned in this Sunday evening. And I'm happy to have with me another fabulous four, right, guys? This is like theme for the summer.
Yeah.
As long as you didn't call us the Fantastic Four.
Oh, yeah.
You'd have to have capes on and all that stuff.
How's everybody? Welcome back, GP. How was the birthday?
It was wonderful. I'm grateful for another year of life and glad to be back with my podcast family.
Yes, we missed you. What's going on with you, Miguel? You had a good week?
It was we're doing quite a bit of traveling up the 95, up and down 95 this week. But you know what? It's I'm alive. We're here.
Man,
we're
we
good.
Can't
complain. So
that's right.
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah.
And you, Charles? How's your?
Oh, good. I was glad to get a little relief in the humidity that's been up here, especially at Pine Forest, and then surviving the change in weather.
Yeah.
And then the power outage because we had a major storm come through. Speaking of storms.
He said, speaking of storms.
Anybody want to jump in on storms?
I don't know if I want to touch that topic.
I mean, it's a lot, but I mean, last week
I'm really referencing the camperee.
I know. I was gonna say last week we were like, yay, safe traveling mercies for everyone there. And here we are a week later, and so much has transpired throughout the week. This is the first year I was saying this is the first year I haven't gone since I've been a part of the conference, and so I've just been relying on what people are saying, those who are there, and so of course you're going to get a mixture of feedback regarding the experience, but it just seems like the weather in Gillette, I don't think it took the locals by surprise. From what I'm reading, they're used to it being that way during this time of the year. Yeah. I think it was the Pathfinders that by surprise in terms of what they were having to deal with all those severe thunderstorms. And I know Walmart was not loving it, but they were benefiting when people, of course.
Oh yeah, towns always benefit.
Yeah,
I went to the one. If you can, I wonder if you remember that. I had to cover the one in Leadville, Colorado.
Oh no, I don't.
Leadville, Colorado, 11,000 feet above sea level. When we came to that town, Leadville was so overwhelmed, but they liked the idea that they were there to spend their money. I mean, you utilized the few laundromats they had there.
Yep.
I pulled up and got gas at the local gas station, and the guy was like so happy that the Pathfinders were there because he had to gas up a lot of buses and gas up a lot of vans.
Yes, I'm gonna make
the guy said, I distinctly remember him saying, he said, when this camperee is over, I'm closing my gas station for 3 weeks. He said, because he's making so much money, trying to keep the vehicles gassed up. But then there, the other side is that, some of the businesses were just overwhelmed. They couldn't keep it.
Yeah. I mean, that's
I was reading a particular article from Gillette talking about one of the vendors who are overwhelmed. That is the porta potty company. Apparently there were 300 something porta potties for 60,000 people.
Right.
And before the storm hit, a large majority of those were overflowing with all kinds of
we don't know.
Number one, number two, and unknown numbers. But I mean, frustration on both sides. But for the camporees, I'm just like, Lord have mercy. I hope no one's sick from this experience.
Yeah. You know, what I'm hearing, you know, because of course, a lot of the adults are on social media and they're commenting, and I'm hearing people saying it's the adults are the ones who had the problem. The kids, they were having fun. They were making the most out of the experience. So, you know, sometimes that's the case. You know, we say we're training Pathfinders. These are the conditions that really, it's really show whether you can stand the test of time. But
it separates the men from the boys, I'll tell you.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, you know, I went to one in Oshkosh, and my sons were, you know, Pathfinder ages, you know, little guys. And a storm came through there. But, you know, I had a hotel room, right? And I told them, I said, look, guys, you know, hey, you want to come with me for this storm? And they said, no, we're going to stick it out. We're going to stick it out. It's okay. Well, they fortunately, Oshkosh had a hangar or several hangars,
right?
Large enough to bring folk in. But I understand this place had, I don't know if it was a hangar, but some kind of building, warehouse or something. But they can only get so many people in there. So
yeah, it's very limited. Oh, let's say hello to the people. I'm sorry. Hello, Carmen. Thanks for tuning in from DC.
Hey.
And Rosalie joining us from Queens, New York. What's up? Kevin Jackson. Thanks for stopping by this evening. Good evening to you. Hello, Mary. Good to see you. Also, Marilyn's telling us that there were not enough porta potties, and that was one of the things I thought was supposed to be, more ideal about this location. They were going to have more, but I guess the overwhelm, as we just described. But I hate to hear that the children were having stomach aches and in line. Oh, so sorry for that.
Oh, that's rough.
I understand. I read some threads like on Reddit and other social networks. The people in Gillette, I understand, were very accommodating.
Yeah.
I mean, they really stepped it up.
They did. Shout out to the residents of Gillette. We appreciate you. Hello, Mike Williams. Thanks for joining us. Dr. D, how are you? And our friend Rodney from Huntsville, Alabama. One of my favorite places in the world, Huntsville. But yeah, so many of them, for those, I realize that some people may not even know what we're talking about. So Gillette, as we keep referring to it, formerly known as Oshkosh, which is really not the name, it's just a location of the International Pathfinder Camporee. I heard several numbers. I heard 55,000, then I heard 60,000 plus campers coming from all over the world for a great experience. They had these elaborate stage play. This year was Believe the Promise. And they have the evening programs. Of course, a few of those had to be canceled, which was a little disappointing. I'm sure that was a little disappointing. But their baptisms, Pathfinders get baptized there. They get honors. They trade pins. So there is a lot of excitement to it, and it happens only every 5 years. So, but they did announce.
I read somewhere where the local Walmart called other Walmarts where we've had previous camps and asked those Walmarts, how did you handle this? So like, and I'm not saying, I mean, they didn't reach out like a week before. I mean, they had been reaching out like a year before.
Oh, okay.
Asking the Walmart, I guess regional management or whatever, because they said, we're going to need help. This is not a typical Walmart shopping experience,
Yeah, and knowing what to get. Like I was seeing pictures, they stocked up on the Morningstar Farm products. They were making sure they had all of the camp. They had a sign out there welcoming the Pathfinders. So they did a great job in the midst of that challenge. Now, Miguel, I saw you had a pin there.
Yeah, I got a pin. Now, I've never been to any of these camporees, but one of my members, I'm like, can you give me a pin while we're going? She gave me a New York pin.
Nice.
So we'll see if she got another one for me. But I've heard a lot of stories come about from this experience. I tried to stay away from them on social media, let the dust settle a little bit. There's a lot of raw emotions.
Yeah.
I'm grateful that there was no loss of life. I know it was
Yes.
inconvenient
Yes,
for a lot of
absolutely.
people, right?
There was some
Um,
potential for that.
yes.
Yeah.
I think I'm more frustrated with the adults.
Yeah.
I'm
You
a
weren't
little disappointed with the
you're not
adults.
the only one.
Yeah, I think, and then not the adults that were there. I think it's more so the ones who are commenting on the sideline.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I say we, as Americans, we have this high expectation that that leadership should be all knowing, right? And leadership needs to plan for every disaster possible.
Yeah.
You need to prepare for the locusts. You need to prepare for, earth-shattering earthquakes.
Mhm.
Prepare. You needed to have an ark ready for a flood.
Mm.
And I think I'm disappointed with those reactions. I even saw someone under Pat's post earlier today say that the adults owe the kids an apology. I'm like, that's
They do? For what?
or the leadership owes them. I don't know. I'm not sure.
Well, I'm sure there'll be some war
Yeah.
stories coming
Yeah.
back. But,
Yeah.
That's why I want to let the dust settle a little bit before I
Yeah.
can dive into
but
it.
you know, some there were a lot of complaints even from Oshkosh, and
Mhm.
there were even complaints from years ago when we had the big one in Leadville, Colorado. It's not going to be perfect.
Mhm.
You know, you guys are pathfinders, and by now, if your club has camped before, you come ready.
For
Come ready.
anything and everything.
Yeah. And I tell you, my pathfinding years, I was the pathfinder director of my church and had to go out with many, as many as 40, 50 kids on a camp out. And I'll tell you, you go one time not prepared. The second time,
Yeah, it's
you
different.
will be prepared.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. They'll be even better. Because I didn't hear about that. Pray for the family of victims of a plane crash
Yeah.
in Brazil.
Yeah, there was a
Mhm. Right.
airline that went down.
Yeah,
Mm.
I think there's about
Hear
60
about that.
people, 62 people, I think, were lost in that.
Definitely have to pray about that.
Yeah.
Yes, and hello to Donna and hello to D live from New York. What was I going to say? And just to wrap up the whole Gillette discussion, they are planning to have it back there in Gillette in 2029. And
Okay.
even with that announcement, it was like, did we not learn anything? But of course, I'm sure that was already in the
Contract.
contract
Yeah.
for more
Yeah.
than once. And there's always that debate of when to have it, because some people are like, oh, can you push it back so that my kids who there's kids
Don't
in
miss
certain
school.
regions who start school earlier and they have to take off a week. But then it conflicts with some of the summer camps that the conferences are having. And so it's just like there's always going to be a section that loses out. It's like deciding which one it is. So it's one of those things. I guess that's why it's every 5 years. You got to make your choices and move on. But looking forward to that 2029. We'll see how it goes. And I can't wait to hear what Marlena's experience was like when she comes back.
That's
She'll give us
right.
that firsthand account.
That is right. I do want to say this though. Shout out to Bermuda Conference
Oh,
Yeah.
you saw that?
for pulling
They
pulling up
rolled.
in campers.
They were in campers. Okay. I saw that. I was like, some people are like, is that really camping though? I'm like, hey, yes,
Makes sense.
it is.
It
It's
makes
called a
sense.
camper,
And
right?
just camping, but yeah.
Yeah. But unfortunately, while at Gillette, we got news. We weren't at Gillette, but about our Spencerville church. I shouldn't say our, but the Spencerville church,
Yes.
part of our sister conference, Potomac Conference. They experienced a pretty devastating fire. And I was reading some of the commentary from the pastor. They were at Gillette. And so they took a plane home early to address the issue. But it's so sad. I mean, I hate hearing about church fires, period. But even when people are sharing their experience of, it's almost like, even though the church can be rebuilt, it's just something about feeling like something that meant so much to you was
Yeah,
destroyed.
it sounds like a family member. I remember how I felt when North Philadelphia church burned down. I mean, that was my original home church. I was baptized there. And to see that church go down like that, it was a real gut punch, I can tell you, emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
Because so much of your life was in
Right.
that church, especially, as a young person. I joined that church when I think I was 13 or something.
Yeah.
But but it's a beauty now, rebuilding.
Yeah.
But yeah, that I'm sure there are a lot of emotional roller coasters going on for the
Yeah.
members
Yeah.
of Spencer.
And that beautiful organ is
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
now
right.
no longer.
And it
Yeah.
was, they had a beautiful organ.
I think I read somewhere where the organ itself was worth $1 million or something.
Probably more than that.
Jeez.
Yeah.
So I'm sure it was insured, right?
Hopefully.
Oh, I'm
Hopefully,
sure. Yeah.
hopefully. I mean, for those who aren't familiar with Spencerville Church,
Yeah.
is one of the larger churches in the Maryland area.
Mhm.
They also have an academy, so I would equate it to probably the size of Brinklow. They're probably in
Okay.
that size range.
Mhm.
And yeah, they have an academy and all that kind of stuff. So it's a staple in the Maryland SDA community, especially for
Mhm.
Potomac family. So we're sending our prayers for them in this
Yeah.
next leg of the journey. Figuring
Mhm.
out what we're going to do next and having to rebuild and to
Mhm.
deal with contractors and
Hopefully
yeah.
That's right, Donna.
hopefully the structure can be restored. Maybe I
Hopefully,
don't know if
yeah.
they
Yeah.
have to
Hope there's something.
demolish the building and rebuild, but it's such a beautiful church.
Right. Yeah. So we're keeping them in our prayers. Because that's devastating. Sorry to hear about that. And I think I know there's so many things happening. We're going to
There's
get
a
to the
lot.
topic eventually, but I know I'm not sure what day was it what day this week did Kamala Harris, Vice President Kamala Harris, announce her running maybe
Oh man,
Walls.
that was this week,
That was
huh?
this week. So we have
I think that might have been
Was
Tuesday.
it like Monday or
Yeah.
Tuesday?
So
Monday or
Tuesday,
Well,
one
that
of those.
announcement just waltzed into our timeline.
it sure did. It sure did. And it was interesting because I had heard so many other names. Even we talked about a few, Hero and some others. And so when this one came in, people were like, "Oh,
Who's
so
that?
yeah, he wasn't even on my radar." But
Mhm.
I think now that people are understanding a little bit more about it, I know some people were initially looking at him and saying, "Oh, here's another older white gentleman." Like, what and turns out he's not as old as as people think. I don't know his exact age, but I know he's definitely
He's younger than Brad Pitt, right?
yeah, that's
Shout out
right.
to
That's
Pastor
right.
Childish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, yeah, he's younger. 1 year younger than Brad Pitt. Is that what it was? Yeah. So just to give you some perspective, but it's a very strategic move, and I get it. I mean, based in terms of his appeal, what the groups that he will appeal to and can relate to. And so far, I kind of like the little bit of chemistry I've seen between them in their interaction. So, time will tell what that will look like. But the campaign trail continues. Oh yes, Rosalie, I saw that. Yeah, I remember that. I remember that when Ephesus Church in Harlem burned down as well. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right, guys. So we're gonna jump into. Oh, thank you for that.
Oh wow.
You're only 6 months apart in age. He's 60. Yeah, I thought it was very close to that. Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
it's gonna be in LA in 2028.
Los Angeles.
Yes. Yeah.
Are we in there?
Yes. And thank you, Donna, for that comment because that's exactly what we were going to talk about. And before we segue into our topic for this evening, because it is related in some ways to the Olympics.
Well, at least that gives Los Angeles enough time to get enough porta
To get
potties.
ready.
Porta potties.
I can
Good night.
imagine the traffic. Oh my goodness.
I know it's already crazy, right? Imagine a lot's going to be shut down,
Yeah.
But yeah, so the Olympics, I mean, a lot has been going on. USA has been doing very well, or did very well. I don't have like the list of all the medals, but what did you say, GP?
I said doing well in basketball.
Men's and women's.
Yeah.
Men and women.
I mean,
Yeah.
they were showing up. Track and field, they did pretty good as well. And of course,
Swimming.
gymnastics. Yeah. So I have a lot to catch up on. I'm still going to go back and watch, even though it's like over and I've seen all the major announcements. I still like to see the competition. But
Now, I don't know how we did in breakdancing.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Australia, boy, I tell you.
I know. All right. I saw that. I saw that clip. I was like, oh wow. Somebody's like, oh, I could have been in the Olympics.
You know, really and truly, guys, I just think there's some sports that just, or events that do not need to be in the Olympics.
Like, who decides that, though? Really? Like, who decides? Thank you. She said it. Dr. D, you're right. It was a mess. Like, I'm like, I don't even remember this ever being a competitive sport, but okay. We'll take
it. Was the pose for me, like, I'm doing something.
Yeah, but
next thing we'll have rap battles as an Olympic sport. I mean, we might as well.
Well,
pickleball,
everything.
Pickleball,
it's almost like the World Guinness World Book of the Guinness World Book of Records. Did I say the right order?
Guinness Book of World Records. Yeah.
Guinness Book of World. Yeah, and it's sometimes you like look at the stuff that's in there, and you're like, why is that even something that people are trying to achieve? You know, so.
But the Pathfinders did pack the most backpacks, and
the most people. I think they packed 200. There were 250 people, I think, packing backpacks at the same time, and so they did break that record at Gillette. Thanks for mentioning that. Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Did not know that was a thing. Okay,
that was one of the things I was surprised to know that was something, a record. But hey, it was documented.
One day we'll break a record too. The longest recorded live podcast.
Oh,
we're gonna go for 2 weeks nonstop.
Yeah, I'd like to see how that. Yeah, all night, all week.
Snacks, food.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
you can do it.
Okay, that's a challenge. Okay. Oh, thank you. See, this is why I love our audience. They give us the they're like our producers helping us out. Yes, 40 golds tied with China. Okay.
40 gold, 44 silver, 42 bronze.
That's not bad. USA. Okay. All right, guys. Well, a few weeks ago or a while ago, there was a little controversy with the opening of the Olympics. Do you guys remember that little controversy that came up? Just to kind of refresh our memories, there were some Christians who were a little offended by what they saw in the opening ceremony. And this was the image that many of us saw that was brought up because Christians felt like this was some sort of mockery of the Last Supper. They were offended by the scene because they said that it evoked Leonardo da Vinci's The Last Supper painting, and that the scene, features this DJ and a producer. Her name's Barbara Butch, who's an LGBTQ plus icon. She's wearing this silver headdress that's supposed to resemble the halo. And then she's surrounded by drag artists and dancers. And then there's a scantily clad man painted in blue in the center of the table, and a transgender model was present. And the Vatican was calling this an offense to Christians. People were in an uproar. Traditionalists and Christian leaders around the world were criticizing the performance, calling it humiliating, and just making a mockery out of Christianity. However, the organizers are like, what's going on with you guys? This was meant to celebrate diversity and pay tribute to French gastronomy and feasting, and to honor the Greek god Dionysus. But they said, we apologize if it offended you. And so I think we can take the picture down. And so it kind of opened up this discussion, which is really what we want to talk about tonight. And that is Christian people in secular places. From what we know, the Olympics is considered a secular event. Would we all agree?
Yep.
That's just not okay. And when we think about what secular means, when we say secular, pretty much it just means that it's anything that is not of a religious or spiritual basis, right? So I think we need to make sure we're defining that, because I don't know about you guys, but growing up in the church, secular for me was equivalent to bad. because it was like, oh, that's secular. Don't do that. That's secular. You would hear that. And so the connotation was like, if it's not religious or if it's considered secular, then you shouldn't be doing it and you shouldn't be involved. And then, so we had this situation where there is a secular event, such as the Olympics, and Christians are offended by what is being displayed. So it brought the question up, do we as Christians have the right to take offense to things that were not necessarily meant to be catered to us? Are we too sensitive? Are we expecting the world to believe in the way that we believe as Christians? And when they don't, take it upon ourselves to point out the offense to us as Christians? Or are we justified in saying, these are sacred beliefs for us, and we ask that you respect them by not taking jabs at them or trying to use things that you know may be counter to that belief to kind of almost, I mean, I don't want to say poke fun, but in some ways, you know, it's almost like somebody throwing something in your face. They know you don't like it, and then they serve it up to you on a platter, on your favorite plate. It's like, you know, and it's so. How should we respond? So that's the question for the evening. We're gonna dive into this more than just the Olympic settings. We're gonna talk about all secular settings in which we are a part, because obviously we can't avoid it. Go ahead, Charles.
Let me ask the question. Are we saying Christians or Adventist Christians?
Christians.
It's Christians in general, but
Christians in general. Yeah.
Adventist Christians, we're a special breed. So that's that's part of it too. I think we can look at it from that broader stroke of Christians, but then also we can deal specifically with us as Adventists. So let me ask you guys, just to throw it out there, if you saw the opening or when you heard about the controversy, were you personally offended? What was your personal take on it? How did you feel about what you saw?
So for me, I typically reserve offense as a last resort, because offense intends that we can have misunderstandings, and you can unintentionally say something that might offend me, but that doesn't mean that I need to be offended, right? I need to. I believe that we should, for me at least, assume the posture of curiosity, inquire. Okay, what's happening here? Is there some parallels? Now that doesn't mean that you're obtuse to, you know, to the reality that, you know, some people do. They may make some underhanded, especially if you're in the church, people make underhanded comments to you all the time, right? Side remarks, especially if you've been in board meetings. You got to decode some things from time to time, because how people may feel, they may send it out in very scripted ways. And so in the same way, when you're dealing with people who are not in the church, not saying that they're any better or worse, you should be wise, but I think we should approach that situation with curiosity and open up and have the conversation. That doesn't mean that you dim your light in terms of you turn down your Christianity or your sensitivity to the things of God. But for me in that moment, I'm like, okay, what am I seeing? Right? Because that is a freeze frame.
Right.
That's not the full, full depiction, nor did I watch the whole thing. I saw several people debating online, and so I tuned in to hear their different perspectives before I formulated an opinion. And I think as Christians, as bearers of light, of grace, and of love, we have to show up with more tools in our tool belt than offense and outrage.
Right. I agree.
There's an opportunity. Now let's say that they were intentionally poking fun at the Last Supper. What do you do? Or let me rephrase that. How are you spreading the gospel by sharing outrage and anger in that moment? Now, I also read in the quarterly last week, Jesus speaking to the Greek woman, right? That conversation was offensive.
Mhm.
Mm,
Jesus was the one doing the offending.
mm,
Are you saying that I should stop feeding the children and give it to the dogs? That is an offensive conversation,
mm.
right? By our measure. But she was able to persist and to continue the conversation and receive what she was looking for. Not saying that this is, but I'm what I'm trying to say is that we need to be um, flexible in our approach. We need to recognize that offense and anger does more harm for the kingdom than it does good. And we need to engage the world with curiosity and openness a little bit in terms of dialogue. Believe
Mhm.
what you want to believe, but have the dialogue. Don't destroy the lines of communication
Right.
over a freeze frame.
Right.
Yeah, I kind of put it in the category of anything else. I mean, if you have a level of, your standard of living, we're going to say Christian in this case, and if going to secular events offends you, it doesn't matter if it was this, see this as egregious. By the way, I was not offended, okay, at all, because I put it in the category of Walt Disney World. I mean, people
Right.
go to Walt Disney and see a little mouse running around, okay, and all kinds of magic and things going on. Christians go to Walt Disney.
Mhm.
But when you go to Walt
Mhm.
Disney Park or wherever, because they have them, I think, globally, you're going to an amusement park
Right.
Mhm.
to be amused.
Right.
Now, if you don't like being amused, then don't go to the park.
Right.
I mean, it's very simple. It's just, I don't know why people go all deep on this thing. You
Yeah.
have a certain, if you want a certain kind of lifestyle standard for your family, then you'll stay away from the Olympics. You'll stay away from, Walt Disney and other theme parks. You'll even stay away from the county carnival.
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
oh, I don't want my kids.
Listen,
Yeah.
all you have to
It-
do is step outside
Yeah.
and your
exactly.
Christianity can be offended. I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's to me, it sounds like it's about managing our expectations. Like you said, if you know that you're going to a place where certain things happen,
Mhm.
Mhm.
what is the point of getting offended when they're doing what they do? That's what they're
Well,
supposed
look, you go to an Eagles game, right? You got your jersey on. Maybe you paint your face, and you're sitting next to a guy that's got this huge, you know, glass of beer, hot dog in his hand, and he's yelling out expletives. What are you going to do? Give him a Bible study? I mean, really? Let's put it in context and let's be, real about this. I mean, you
Right.
go to an Eagles game. You're a Christian, a devout Christian. You're going to an Eagles game to support your team.
Mhm.
You know you're going to have some rowdies there.
Mhm.
You know, go to the
Especially the Eagles
Thanksgiving
game.
Day parade or whatever. I mean, it's like, I think many of us just get too sensitive
Yeah.
about it. And
Yeah.
I mean, surely there are other religions that have been mocked.
Mhm.
Yep.
Salman Rushdie, what he wrote in his book, the Muslims considered him mocking the Muslim. I mean, the man's life was in danger as a result of it.
Mhm.
Now we know some sects of those organizations, with some Muslim organizations, are pretty extreme. So they put this, this thing out on him. But that is a reaction from a quote unquote religious group.
Mhm.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
so I think that we need to be realistic. In 2024, we really need to be a little more grown up about this.
Mhm.
Yeah. And that's what I was gonna say. I mean, many of you have even said in the chat, offense can be found anywhere. And I think the issue or the piece is our response. So you are offended. As you mentioned,
Mhm.
Charles, you have the option not to participate, not to go. If you're at the game, you can leave. If you're watching it on your TV, you can turn it off. But I feel like sometimes as Christians, we feel like if we are offended, or especially if someone's offending our belief system, then it is on us to make it known, to
Mhm.
stand up, on our Christian soapbox and let the world know what has happened to us and why we won't tolerate it or why this is not okay. And how do we feel about that posture? Because some of us feel like if we don't say something, then we're not being true to ourselves as Christians.
So I recently had a situation, a conversation, and I can't give up the relationship because it's still an ongoing situation. But there's a particular person staying at someone I know's house, right?
Mhm.
From time to time, they'll come in and visit. And that person is a Christian. The
Mhm.
household is a Christian home. But their particular way of handling things rubs people the wrong way. And a part of the issue is they feel entitled, or they feel as if the entire household should cater to their needs. That becomes overbearing after a while, right? Because we all have our own situations going on and our own, whatever.
Right.
Learning how to coexist in any room that you're in, I think is a skill set. What I'm seeing is a lot of Christians don't recognize, or are having a hard time recognizing, that there is a growing population of people that no longer hold Christianity as sacred.
Yeah.
And the worldview is shifting, and Christians are now vying for power. Now, the reality is Christianity thrives when it's not in power, when it's not a part of the empire. But for a long time, Christianity and the political structures
Right.
have been hand in hand.
Yeah.
Things are shifting, and the world is no longer catering to our sensitivities anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So
how do we?
what are we to do?
Yeah.
Well, live a life like Jesus.
Right.
There you go.
He lived in a society that didn't cater to his sensitivities.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But he became a servant.
Mm-hmm.
That was his model.
Right.
Yeah. If you're living the life of a Christian, and people know that, they know that's your lifestyle. Because through my career, not just as a denominational worker, but even before then, I was a government worker. You get invited to parties, you get invited to dinner parties. If you have conducted yourself as a Christian and people know that, they will respect you for that.
Right.
I've been to a lot of secular events, and because the people know me, because of the life I live, they'll say, oh, don't offer that guy a cigarette. He doesn't smoke. Or he's not, here's the punch that's not spiked.
Right.
Or here are the vegetarian or the meatless dish. Yeah, because they know what I'm about.
Right.
So they're respecting, not that I'm just a Christian, but they are respecting my dedication to a lifestyle.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they have to know that.
Right. They have to.
Because if you don't live the life or exercise your engagement and your socializing on the higher level of your commitment to a particular lifestyle, they will never know. You look like everybody else in the room.
Yeah. And Mike brings up a good point. In some cases, the person or individual that offended you, and this is probably more on a personal level, not necessarily an Olympics stage, but they may not realize that they've offended. And so maybe someone can educate them. This is why this is offensive. But the key, as he says here, is how you educate them, because sometimes we'll make a rant on social media. It goes viral because we're so angry and this is an abomination and this is how could they? And the person usually doesn't respond well to that type of usually it's counterintuitive because they're more turned off by whatever it is you're talking about than seeking to understand. And so I think I
was going to ask Tosh if you would, this is not a shameless promotion, but if you would put up the comment that Carrie made, the scholar of our household.
This one?
Okay.
It was a depiction of the question is whether or not Da Vinci modeled painting after that. Yeah.
So that statement there is suggesting that if you don't understand it, instead of being offended, if you don't understand what you're seeing, do some research,
Right.
and find out what it is you're watching.
Yeah.
You know,
Where did the art come from?
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
So, guys, I really want to shift our conversation. We talked about the Olympics. We know that's an event, thousands of people attend it, but for the most part, the majority don't. So let's talk about everyday life. Let's talk about in some of our workspaces. Now, obviously, for many of us, we work in a religious environment, but we're keeping in mind our audience as well. And we have all probably worked somewhere where, it wasn't a religious organization, and you were surrounded by people who did not necessarily believe what you believe. The company didn't stand for anything that was based on Christian principles. And so how do we as Christians navigate those familiar places that we visit every day and are constantly seeing things that contradict how we live our lives, or in some cases may be offensive to us? Charles, you mentioned how you may be with a coworker and they're like, oh, don't give them that drink. You get invited to happy hour every evening. Everybody wants to go to happy hour.
I'm offended by my camera. It's really getting wonky. I apologize. It's going in and out of focus.
Yeah. Hey, Jimmy. So yeah, how do we do that? And the reason I'm asking that is because there are some people who really struggle with feeling like I'm not being a good enough witness, because when someone's cursing around me, if I don't say anything to them, if I don't let them know how bad what they're doing, what they're saying is doing, am I really standing up for my beliefs? So I do believe that there is some level of letting someone, creating your own boundaries and saying, please, I'd appreciate if you're not, don't use that language around me or something like that, versus feeling like we now need to, go into extreme detail as to why this person should not be doing this, that, and the other, and trying to convert that person over to what we believe, using their offense to us as the, as
that bridge.
Yeah. I think, if you just live the life and be authentic, people can tell. I've had several instances. Before I worked for the church, I worked for government, or worked for private industry. And in every situation, I was just me, a Christian. Some things I don't do. And people notice that. You'd be surprised. People watch you. Okay. If they don't ever see you with a cigarette, they don't ever see you with a drink, you're not using profanity, after a while, they get it. In fact, I used to, in my high school, I went to a Philadelphia public high school. I had friends there that were not Adventists. I had classmates who were not Adventists, not Christians. And every time we got together, either in the hallway or the football game or whatever, they had the opportunity to curse and drink and smoke and whatever. I never did any of that stuff. And as a result, they didn't ostracize me. In fact, they came to my defense. If someone started using profanity around me, I've had friends say, "Hey, yo, hold it. Don't, because he doesn't curse." Right. No, seriously, that has actually happened to me, because they have seen that you're actually witnessing by living out who you are, even in the midst of a secular environment or people who follow secular practices. It's okay. It's okay. And you're not there passing out tracts.
But I was going to say, Charles, you don't feel like you need to educate them on why they shouldn't be cursing or why they shouldn't be doing it? That's not your job.
That's the Holy Spirit's job.
No. Okay. You see, I think now I'm drilling down to my experiences as an Adventist and coming up and what I should do and how I should witness and what I should say to people and all of this. I think there is a behavior that we have accumulated over the years where we think we got to tell people how they should live. Tell them, right? Not so much live it out, but tell them how they should live. Oh, this is my opportunity to witness. We're always chasing people. if we live the life, the Christ-centered life that God is expecting us to live, we will attract people. We have this mindset of we have to chase people. Let's go out and tell them. If you live a Christ-centered life, you will attract people. You don't have to chase them. They'll come to you and say, "Hey, I noticed that you don't drink. Yeah, I noticed. Yeah,
You're nice to people."
I had one coworker, and I know I shared this with Latasha in agreement. One coworker came up to me when I was working for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Worked there for years, had a lot of colleagues, and they said one day a colleague of mine sat down at the lunch table. We had a big cafeteria in this facility we were in, and he just blurted right out, "You know what?" I said, "What?" He says, "I think you're Seventh-day Adventist." Right out of the blue. Not Christian, because he had Christian values that I shared. But even more specifically, he said, "You must be a Seventh-day Adventist." All right. I didn't carry tracts around. Of course, in a government facility, you weren't allowed to do that. I didn't have long conversations or debates with him or anything that he could drill down and say, "You're a Baptist. You're a Catholic." He said, "Oh, you must be a Seventh-day Adventist." Now, for some reason, I did something that attracted that question. I wasn't going after him. I wasn't trying to make him an Adventist. I wasn't trying to put...
You didn't give him steps to Christ?
No.
That's
but he judged by my behavior and my dialogue with him that I must be something different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So can I share something? Well said, Chuck, because the best sermon preached is often a life well lived.
Yeah.
It was my first year in seminary, grad school. I was pursuing my Master's of Divinity. And after my first year, my friends who I sing with, they wanted to compete in an a cappella competition. And so I made a bold decision to drop out of seminary, to move to Los Angeles, to compete in a secular reality TV show. And we were not singing "Jesus Keep Me Near the Cross." We were not singing "Lo He Comes." We were singing Chris Brown songs, other secular songs. But the fascinating thing was, because we weren't afraid to tell folks who we were, what we believed in, before every recording, guess who they asked to pray? Committed. Can you pray for us? Friday before sunset, we took our break. Saturday night, guess who taught us on the choreography that we missed the previous day? Our friends that we met. So we got to know them as people. They would ask us questions about the Sabbath and Adventism. They never heard about it, but they were curious because we were approachable and just nice people.
Right. And as a result of your behavior,
yes,
and their assessment of your behavior, you were attracting them.
Right.
Not repelling them.
Exactly. And my point I'm making is we got thousands of messages, lots of hate mail by other Christians and Adventists who were offended by what we were doing. But we also got thousands of messages from people saying, "You guys are drawing me closer to Christ in spite of what you're singing, because of what you stand for and what I experience when I hear you. I decided to go back to church. You guys are such an inspiration to me to get closer to God." And so even in that secular arena, God was still working on people's hearts behind the scenes. So whenever I got those messages from haters or offended people, I would ignore them because I had other testimonies of people being encouraged and blessed by our boldness and our courage to be on the show. And so the reality is we may have different professions, but we all have the same purpose.
Right.
The whole line of, "Oh, I have a secular job, you have a sacred job." No. We are all disciples of Jesus Christ. And God wants to use us in our respective arenas to draw others to him.
That's right.
Yeah. And I will say, because I saw a comment, of course, we're not saying that we shouldn't share the gospel with other people. Let's be clear. I think one of the things we're trying to point out is one, developing relationship is always key. And part of developing that relationship is to be who you are in spaces without trying to tell everyone else they need to be like you, first of all, because when you create that relationship, like you just described, GP, where it's like, yeah, we won't be participating right now. You didn't say you guys need to cancel this right now. All y'all need to be observing the Sabbath right now. And because you guys are trying to, you didn't do that. But because you said this is what we're going to do, you took your stand. They respected it, and then they wanted to learn more about it, right? And I think what we're saying is there's a way to witness in a way that doesn't start with "you're wrong," and I'm going to show you why you're wrong.
Right.
I think we're people. I have some differences. When the time comes, I can share those with you. And they're more receptive to it. I think that's really what we're saying in terms of, but some people really have this agony of feeling like, oh, I haven't given a track to anyone at work. Am I really doing
Making
my
an
job?
impact?
Yeah. And it's like, it's okay. Like the Lord
Just
will
let your light shine.
Yes, let your light shine. Those opportunities will come to you sometimes when you least expect it, if you're open to it. The key, though, as you were saying, Charles, is to make sure you're living a Christian life first, because that's what's going to draw people to you. When you're in that situation where you're trying to fit in, and so you may compromise on some of those beliefs, and then later you're going to come and try to tell people how they should be living. They'll be the first ones to come back and tell you, well, last week you were in here cussing out the supervisor.
Right.
So, what are you talking about here?
It's really simple. Live the life that you're committed to.
Right.
Just live it. Don't be embarrassed. Don't be ashamed of it. Because if you are, then you're living a lie because you don't believe it in your heart. If you live the way you believe in your heart, it's not difficult. It's really not difficult. And the adversary would want you to believe that he massages your ego and your arrogance. And, oh, you're going to let them say that about you, or you're going to, it really, it wasn't hard for me in every situation that I came across that dealt with either a secular mindset or a secular environment. It wasn't hard. I wasn't embarrassed. I didn't feel bad. None of that. I just lived how I was convicted.
Right.
And I did it without shaming other people.
Right.
That's another thing that we have to be careful of, sometimes people, like I've been in situations where, like if you subscribe to a certain diet, right? And you're in an environment where there are varying types of diets and preferences about eating and drinking. The last thing you want to do is say to someone, "Oh, you're going to eat that?" It's like,
Listen.
What? I've not done it, but I've witnessed people say that very staunch.
Audacity.
You're gonna eat that? That's poison. I'm like, I'm sitting at the table with these people, and I'm going, "Oh,
That's
no."
like the worst.
No, they didn't say that.
But the thing is, we don't like it when people do it to, like, I'm a vegetarian. Sometimes we have some interesting substitutes. And sometimes it looks a little weird on the plate. And people are like, what is that? Like, even just the question and the way it's presented is offensive, because it's almost like, what are you doing? So why do you do that? It's like, there's a way. Like,
I think what you're speaking to is a lack of awareness that a lot of Christians tend to have or are known to have. We don't realize how we show up in different spaces and how our conduct may be portraying a message that we may not intend to make, or maybe we're obtuse to the reality of what we're doing, right? So somebody opens up their lunch and there's some pig knuckles in there, and you're making
that's scary.
I'm sorry, I might have to make a picture.
You know what they'll do? They'll take a picture and make it go viral on social media while dragging that
Look
person.
at what my coworker's eating. Yeah.
Those kind of you start to alienate people, and I think especially when you're going through like that high school, college phase, and you're learning how to, make friendships, and post grad, you're in the workspace and you're learning how to be an adult, how to be a grown up. That is a tough transition, a transitional time for a lot of people. And I do remember one of my first jobs out of college. I was back in Brooklyn and I was helping out a coworker. No, my mindset when I'm at work, I want to enter a space and believe that I'm adding an improvement to wherever I'm at. Like,
Right.
not that I'm trying to be the boss, but I want to have the perspective of a CEO. I want to protect the business as if it's my own, right?
Mhm.
And so that came through, and we were able. It was a couple. Another friend of mine was also Adventist. We both work in the same place, and we set our hard lines. We're not going to work at certain hours. They'll still call us. We don't do this. We don't do that. They'll still ask. I do remember, and I want to shed this light because sometimes, Chuck, it doesn't always work out that way.
Mm.
And I want to put that perspective out there, not
Yeah.
to say that this is the reality, but I just want to put a warning label out there. There was a young lady that I worked with, and it was downpouring this day, and she was about to take the bus home. I'm like, no, I got you. Let me just drive you home. She gets in my car, and at that time, I had a stack of CDs. And she was very interested in music, so she starts going through my stack of CDs. After about 4 or 5, she's like, "Wait, all you listen to is gospel music?" With that, like
that. Like, what's
deep
wrong with
Are you for real?
disgust. Like, what is this? Like, where's the party mix, right?
you?
I'm like, yeah, this is me right here. And our relationship changed after that day. Not that I've done anything different,
Mhm.
Right.
but she was uncomfortable around me,
Mhm.
and we ended up having a major falling out later on. Now I'm looking back, I'm like, oh, that's where it started. But there are those individuals, and it's not your job to try to convince or reel them back in.
No.
It's, man, this is
I would venture to
more on
say,
them.
Biggs, that she was convicted.
Maybe
You made her
maybe
My
uncomfortable.
guess.
You were
That's my guess.
making her
maybe
face, something for
yeah,
herself. Yeah.
maybe, but she was our I wouldn't say friendship. Our work relationship was never the same after that moment.
I've had those.
But that's more on
Them.
her side, that
Yeah.
I didn't switch up, and I
Right.
make sure that I don't switch up, and I make sure that I treat everyone fairly.
Yeah.
I try to do my best to treat others the way that I would want to be treated,
Mhm.
because I ended up being promoted and being the supervisor and all that kind of stuff, and I want to make sure that I'm treating people as I would want to be treated. And I'm learning even now, you know, how to word certain things. I wish Pat was on. GPU knows what I'm
Yeah.
talking about
Yeah.
here.
What do you do? Oh, I'm a hope dealer. Don't say you're a pastor.
Yeah.
So
Maybe
clam
not
up
that
and shut
much.
down.
Inspirational speaker. Yeah.
People do climb up. People do climb up. But even when talking to members and asking certain questions, GP and I will ask the same question, but maybe GP's approach is more catered to that person's personality, and they're able to receive the message better than me. Like, especially in the Caribbean community, and I don't know how it is outside of this. We have a desire to be cutthroat with the words.
Mhm.
If you're not straightforward, they kind of see
Mhm.
you as being fake.
Mm.
Mhm.
And that approach most times rubs people the wrong way.
Mhm.
So having to reword things and having to ask the questions at the right time and the right way, and just having those soft skills of okay, this person's body posture is showing aggression and they're shutting down. Maybe this is not the right time for me
Right.
to critique their food choice for the day.
Right.
Maybe a slice of pizza is what they need to
Mhm.
get through this moment.
Mhm.
Maybe this is not the right time to talk about the health message. Maybe they're going through crisis, and you can ask certain things, and you can ask the right questions, or maybe you can share a joke. I use humor to disarm. Maybe this is a great time to add in some self-deprecating humor, just to clear the air a little bit, reset
Get
the
a little
room,
chuckle, make it
a
light.
little chuckle, a little light, and it's on me. It's at no one's expense,
Right.
because some people only know how to make jokes when it's on other people's expense, and that's a
Yeah.
terrible habit. But reset the room a little bit.
Yeah, and I think too, I think that's why it's so important for us to be in tune with the Holy Spirit. It takes the pressure off of us to feel like, am I doing the right things? And when I'm in secular environments, because when you're in tune with the Holy Spirit, He'll whisper certain things to you, like, go say hi to so and so, or so and so is having a bad day. Check on them. He'll do that, and sometimes you don't know why. And sometimes you talking to, like, why? I don't. This is weird.
Yeah.
And then you do it, and the person's like, man, I was really struggling today, and just your conversation really helped me. I mean, and I tell people, instead of trying to focus on what am I doing to show that I'm a Christian, focus on prayer, asking God to reveal that to you, being attentive to the Holy Spirit. When you hear those whispers, when you feel that little unctioning, don't ignore it, don't brush it off. Follow suit. I mean, that's something I'm trying to get better at. Like, when a thought enters my head, no, Tasha, that's not your thought. That didn't belong to you. That came from nowhere in your head. God put it there to tell you to do XYZ. No, do it. And in so many cases, I've done it. And I'm like, wow, God, what if I hadn't done it? You know what I mean? Especially when you see the response. And sometimes you don't see the response, but in your obedience, it helps you get better at listening to that voice and being proactive with that.
Yeah, I'm sure I'll have some people disagree with me, but I have this concept of chasing people or attracting people. I think a good behavior, a honest, Christ-centered behavior, attracts people. Now, it may not keep people, but it attracts them.
Yeah.
Right. The adversary is not going to be attracted by that. In fact, the adversary is going to, cause division and cause problems. But if you easily just live your life without advertising, on a big marquee, I'm a Seventh-day Adventist Christian, I believe in hell. If we would just chill for a moment and be human.
That's the common denominator, isn't it?
Yeah. Just chill and be human and allow people to be attracted to your Christ-centered behavior in all situations.
Yeah.
And when they're attracted, they ask questions.
Right.
Oh, I noticed you didn't do this, that, and the other. Oh, I noticed you didn't get upset about that. Oh, I know. How come? What's up with you? I've had people say that to me before. What's up with you, man? I would tear this guy apart. You're going to take that? And I said, yeah, I have no problems.
Yeah.
There's no love lost.
Yeah.
And they're amazed at that. Some folk are amazed.
Yeah.
I said, no, I'm fine. I'm good.
And I know we're about to land, but I definitely wanted to put this comment up because I think that this is important. And I don't know if we all know this. Everyone does not have that gift of correction or teaching. And this is what I mean by that. Do you know how you have family members sometimes and you're like, so-and-so, can you talk to so-and-so? When you say it, it comes off a little nice.
Got that touch.
Yeah. We need to be a little bit more discerning in whether or not we have that touch or not. If you're constantly doing this and people are running away or, you're not drawing, you're actually causing people to flee. Don't wear that as a badge of honor. That's not a good thing. When people don't want to be around you or when people are, constantly turned off by you, don't feel like you're a martyr in Jesus' name. No, that's not
a soldier for Christ.
Yeah, that's not necessarily what's happening because, as was said before, he says, if I be lifted up, I'll draw all men. If what you're doing is not drawing, that's a sure indication that maybe we need to rework some things and how we're.
And I believe that in one of the, I think, components to allow or get people to be attracted to you, not that you're using that as a tool to get them to be members of your church, but if you act a certain way and you have empathy, I think a lot of us have lost empathy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Empathy is, let's not get them mixed up. Sympathy is one thing. Empathy is something else. Sometimes we have no empathy anymore because we have the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't comply to the truth, I don't care if you're in a ditch. I'm sorry, you're of the devil. I can't help you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Empathy is so important for us as livable Christians.
Mm-hmm.
And the Lord has a way of letting you know that you're living that. You're living it. You're not preaching it so much, but you're living it. I think that's the most powerful sermon there is.
Yeah.
Let me tell you a brief story. We talk about secular situation. All right, before I became a denominational worker, I had an opportunity to be a manager in a secular company. They needed someone that had my skills and so forth and so on. And I came in for a first interview. Sometimes you get several interviews. I'm in the first interview. They looked at my resume and they saw my skills and saw my background and said, "Oh, yeah, it looks good. So we'll call you in for a second interview." Okay, second interview. I was told by other friends that, "Oh, bring you in for a second interview, you must be in the pocket." I said, "No, I can't guarantee anything." But I went in, and in that second interview, I was compelled to say, "I know this is shift work. I cannot work on Friday nights. And this is why." So the personnel person said, "Well, okay, that might be a problem because the job you applied for is second shift. It's going to run into the evenings. I don't know." So I said, "Okay," I kind of chalked it up. I'm not going to get this job.
Mm-hmm.
I was called in for a third interview. And I said, "Okay, what's up with this?" I said to the personnel director, I said, "Did you not hear me that I can't run this second shift on Friday?" She said, "No problem. You have the job. We'll make an adjustment." I said, "Oh, really?" And you know what she said? She said, "Our vice president, who is of the Jewish faith, was so impressed by you standing firm on not
Mm-hmm.
working on the Sabbath, he gave you the job
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
and adjusted my shift that only on Fridays I would work the morning and be off in the afternoon." So I wasn't throwing up tracks and trying to
Mm-hmm.
bringing out the red books and explain. I just stood firm. I just said, "Look, I'm sorry. I can't. And this is why. I'm a Seventh-day Adventist. I recognize the Sabbath, so forth and so on." And so when I heard that I got the job, the vice president wanted to see me. And he told me why he insisted that I be hired. He said, "I really had a lot of respect for the fact that, you could have compromised. You could have said, well,
Mm-hmm.
People do it all the time.
it's working. I got to feed my family, Yeah, you made no excuses. And he says, for that, you get rewarded the job.
Mm.
That's a word.
Yep.
Mhm.
That's the kind of employees they want. So that speaks volumes.
I have a question before we land this plane. Thinking back on what Chuck's talking about and GP's testimony, I've wondered before, and I think it's coming back now. How did the Hebrew people view Daniel and the three Hebrew boys?
Hmm.
Did they see them as sellouts,
Mhm.
a part of Babylon?
Hmm.
Like, and their names are changing, and they're
Wow.
I wonder. Like, of course, we don't have the the
No, but
insight,
that's a good one.
but I often do. I do wonder, and I think they're a great testament as to how we ought to interact in a world that doesn't cater to our immediate sensitivities or religious preferences.
Mhm.
It's okay to hold on to your principles and to
Mhm.
share them when opportune.
Mhm.
But Daniel, his approach was very different and very diplomatic in how he handled and how he handled things. And I think in every space we got to be wise. I think that's the call. We got to be wise. We can't just have a broad approach and be abrasive and aggressive. I think as Christians, we got to know how to adjust, in different climates. So that's just I think that's our final
Yes.
conclusion of the whole thing.
Yes, it's possible to be Christian in secular places. I think we have talked a lot about it's not just about saying what's wrong with everything around us, but living a life that reflects that belief and taking every opportunity to share it with others when the time is right and when we've built relationships with them. Not coming in a place of judgment, but in a place of love where we want them to
just keep in
experience
mind, you step
joy.
outside your door every morning to either go to school or to work or to take a walk. You have stepped into the secular world.
Yep.
When you post on social media,
Yep. That's so true.
when you scroll, yep.
And thank you, Brother Lukum. You said it. We need to be Christians before. We can't just turn on the Christian switch.
Right.
You need to be before because it's even harder to turn it on once you get there. So they committed way before they went to the king.
And I know we didn't have much time, but I want to encourage somebody to look up ancient Gnosticism, the enlightenment that suggests that matter is evil and spirit is good, and how that led to us having this huge divide between the sacred and secular. So look up Gnosticism.
I like that.
And there's still some remnants. Yeah.
I love it. Listen, we got homework. You guys got homework. All right, guys. Well, thank you. We appreciate you guys as always engaging us in the chat. We just wanted to bring up this topic because Christians, we got a lot to say about a lot of stuff. I mean, it's all good. But
opinions.
Let's just make sure everything is done in love. Let that be our main focus.
And you can say I just said it, but just remember, try not to chase people, just attract them. And you got to live a certain life to attract them.
Do that.
Yeah. I would add to that, it's not about doing, but being.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Be a Christian.
Be one.
That's right.
And learn how to be one. I think some of us think we're being Christian with some of this stuff.
Right.
We need to go get a refresher course. But anyway. All right, guys. Thanks again for the dialogue. Thanks to our live chat. We appreciate all of you. Thanks for joining us on this Sunday. But guess what? We'll be back next Sunday with even more, another hot topic. We appreciate you. We'll see you next week. Have a great one.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.